framing done, insulation done. I'd even make a joke about a wall. Actually, nah, you won't get over it. But instead, today we're installing vapor barrier. Corey's gonna show you the easiest way to get her done while teaching you some tips and tricks along the way on how to keep things less moist. I'm Danielle, and welcome to De-cor Homes.
Just picture you're installing wallpaper at your mom's house. You can't miss a single spot. You gotta make sure that everything is nice and flat and looking perfect, because she'll let you know. So this is a utility knife in my pocket. I am not happy to see you. Here we go. Hi there, Corey from De-cor Homes here. On today's episode, we're doing, you guessed it, vapor barrier. Our vapor barrier product that we use is by Everbilt. But the most important thing that you need to get is the proper height, which is 8 feet tall for us. This is 4 feet, but it's folded in half. And also the most important thing as well, so two most important things, is the thickness. This is 6 mil, okay? So a 6 mil vapor barrier is critical in creating a good product. If you get anything thinner, you're probably the cheapest person known to man. It's probably saran wrap on the wall. That doesn't work, okay? So when I'm taking this out of the bag, I keep the bag because the bag holds it all together really easily, okay? When you don't have the bag and you try to lift it up, it's still touching the ground. So when you have the bag, it really helps. When discussing vapor barrier, it's important to know what it's actually doing. Listen to the name, vapor barrier. It's supposed to keep all the moisture away from your drywall, okay? Especially on exterior walls. Vapor barrier only gets put on exterior walls. So this is an exterior wall. This is an exterior wall. This is an interior, so nothing here. This is also exterior, and this is interior. So we just need to put vapor barrier on this wall here, this wall, as well as this one here. Before taking on a job like installing vapor barrier, you always need to make sure you have the right tools. First, get your vapor barrier. This rolls of vapor barrier, they range from $30 to $100 depending on the size, the height, and the length. I always grab a really sharp knife. My knife of choice are Olfa knives. It's a 25 millimeter blade. Okay, if you're not using 25 millimeter blades, you need to upgrade because it's a huge difference. When I'm using my stapler, I use a staple gun. I have a DeWalt staple gun. This thing works like a charm. And these are the staples I'm using. Nothing too big. 3/8 of an inch, I believe, in length, and it's got teeth, so that way it'll really dig into the wood. Make sure you have your staples nice and full inside your gun prior to starting. And make sure you have a sharp knife and a pocket that actually works. Last but not least, you need to get the proper tape. Which one is it? The blue or the red? You tell me. The answer's blue. The red tape used to be the standard for years and years and years and years. Now, we only use it for exterior sheathing, okay? So this is outside. Blue is for inside. It's a thicker tape in general. It's more adhesive. And most importantly, it says contractor sheathing tape for vapor barrier. The blue tape is what you're supposed to use. If you pull a permit and then they come and do your insulation inspection and realize that you have red tape, guess what? You just failed your inspection. And you'll have to replace with the blue tape, or you'll have to go over and just basically cover the seams or replace what you see as red with blue, and you're laughing. You don't have to remove what's there. Tuck tape is also called seaming tape. So depending on which location you're at, building codes are very different. With our building codes, we required the blue tuck tape, but in your location, you may still use the red. Just make sure you do your research before you pull permits. Make sure that you are using the right product. That way you're not backtracking and redoing all your work. Doing your basement, the red tuck tape was widely used for years and years and years. But then in Canada, the red tuck tape wasn't tested by the standards of construction building materials. So when they first introduced that red tape, it wasn't tested properly. They used the blue tape because it's actually specifically designed for polyethylene, which is PE vapor barrier. Just in case you're curious what that means. So let's get started. Let's take this tape, get rid of it. All right, sorry. Whenever I'm using a utility knife, use a brand new blade. Whenever you can, use a brand new one, especially when doing vapor barrier. Vapor barrier will really show a dull knife, and it'll make a very easy job kind of difficult. Before covering the walls, what we need to do is cover all of the receptacles. The receptacles need to be vapor barriered in such a way that it keeps all the moisture away from them as well. And then we use the tuck tape to seal everything up. So when I'm cutting for my vapor barriers, I picture something approximately this big. That way it can wrap around the end and you don't have too much excess. So I would say approximately a foot long or a foot wide for all of those. And since we have an 8-foot wide piece, what we do is we take this, a long blade, that way it cuts through really easily, and just like that. Go nice and straight down. This will make sure that when you actually start your wall vapor barrier, you'll start with a straight edge. But that being said, we still overlap a hair, just in case we weren't perfect. We have approximately a foot wide piece. It's folded in half, so now we can open it up. And what I'll do is I'll cut squares for my receptacles. I got 1, 2, and I have 3 and 4. So when you're cutting on a piece of wood, always use a short blade. This will make it much more evident, right? When I use proper technique, how much easier is it? We have our 4 pieces. I'm gonna take my biggest one and I'm gonna use this for this receptacle. So here we go. This is gonna go behind, but there's a cord there. So in the middle, I cut my line for the cord, and then I just wrap it around. Now, come on, don't get any easier than that. We got our next one. Let's draw our line. Just a line pretty much down the center. Just like that, straight down the center. Wrap it around the receptacle. And then we'll screw them back in. Go to the third one. Line down the center. Put it there for now. We'll come back and tape them all at the same time. This one here has a wire both at the bottom and the top. So, what do you think happens? I hope you guessed that. So now that I've put the plastic around all the vapor barriers, what I just want to do is seal up this little gap here. And that way it's nice and airtight pretty much. When you're using tuck tape, it's always a really important skill to fold your edges. If you don't fold your edge, it'll be extremely difficult for you to find where the tuck tape begins. Sometimes it'll start to tear in strands, which is very inconvenient. And lastly, for the amount of time that I've wasted trying to figure out where the edge is, honestly, I could have taped up 2 extra receptacles in that time. You can rotate this thing around so that it'll cover edges a little bit better. We'll trim these plastic pieces out later and screw them right back to where they belong. That's the next step. Oh, see? I left this and now it's like, well, that wasn't too bad. I got lucky. Now when cutting your tuck tape, you can't pull it apart if you wanted to, because like it's like really can't pull it apart. Ridiculous. But if you make a single little mark in it, it just, right? So don't pull the tuck tape. Put a small little cut in it and pull. That being said, it's also safer to put a small little cut in it instead of cutting the whole thing, because what if you accidentally cut through the wire or a pipe or a wire or a copper pipe, right? These utility knives, they can cut through anything, especially soft metals and soft plastics and more soft metals. Let's keep taping. Remember to tape the bottom on this one too. So all 4 receptacles are now done. Let's screw them back into place. To put the receptacles back in, I always use 1 1/4 inch construction screws. Robertson head, number 2, and pretty basic. Also, I like to use a longer drill bit. The longer the drill bit, the easier it is to screw stuff in, just because sometimes it can get kind of tight. What I'm looking for is the existing holes. And I see 1 hole there and 2 at the bottom. I'm just going to relocate those ones. The trick is put the screw in ahead of time. Pull your plastic through. And then once that's on, you locate where you were, your pilot hole. Pop it back in. Each receptacle will likely have 3 screws for them. So these receptacles have little tabs on them. These tabs are meant to go right on top of the 2x4, so that when 1/2 inch drywall is put on, this tab and the spacing will work perfectly. I like to make sure that the box is pushed right up against that corner. There we go. So I'm pushing with my left hand pretty hard, that way I'm like right up in there. The reason why we attach receptacles from the inside is that, say if you wanted to move the receptacle or remove the receptacle down the road, you have the flexibility of being able to remove it from the inside. If you attach it from the outside, these little holes up here, or way up here, then you'll have to cut a massive hole around your drywall just to be able to get it out. Once I find my pilot hole, then I push my receptacle where it needs to be with my left hand, and I'm now pushing with my right hand. Yeah, all right, about 20 minutes to do 4 receptacles, and I'm explaining it all at the same time, so if I was just working, I could probably get it done in twice the time, or in half the time. Now we're down to the fun stuff. We have our receptacles covered with vapor barrier. They're all attached, they're looking secure, they're looking beautiful. let's get this wall covered now. Covering all of this insulation, you'll notice that you'll be able to breathe easier and the room will just sound different. When I use my vapor barrier, what I want to do is flip this around so that the top is open. Once the top is open, I figure out where the writing is, because the writing is my gauge of how straight everything is. There's my writing, okay? So I unroll probably about 10 feet of vapor barrier, because you want to be able to bend it up and move it around. Then from there, I find the corner and I start by creating a line on the ceiling based on my 2x4. So what I do is I start at the top left, let's say, and then I'll just staple at the top, and I always put some overhang. That way, if we're going straight down, and say if I didn't cut it perfectly straight and the thing kind of bends, sometimes what happens is it's covering by, you go 6 inches over, but then when you look at the bottom, you're actually like 4 inches under because like your cut was crooked. So let's get our staple gun. Let's position this nice and straight. I'm gonna start stapling around here, and then I'm gonna push my way over because I have an obstacle. Try to get it as straight as you can. Pop in a staple. Try to get it as straight as you can. Pop in a staple. From here, once the top gets stapled on, then you continue to work your way over as straight as you can. This is the most important and critical aspect to the installing vapor barrier. That way, the straighter it is, the easier it guarantees that you'll have fewer like air pockets in the center. This looks actually pretty tight on the top. So what I like to do is, once I get the top installed, I work my way down from the center of the wall that I'm working on. So by doing this, the way I achieve this is I pull away from the wall with one hand, and then I pull down the wall with another. Now that my hand is nice, the pressure is on, this looks all tight, let's pop in a staple. Keep going down, you get another one. I could see a slight ripple here. Again, you pull back with one hand, you pull down with the other. Once you get the middle stapled and everything is nice and tight looking, then you can work your way out from the middle. I have an obstacle here, so it would be intelligent for me to cut this out first. Super sharp knife. Let's just cut around here. The top is stapled, the side is stapled. So I'm pulling in this direction because I want to get it nice and flat. I can now continue to work my way down as far as I can. Work my way out this way. So I'm holding with my hand to pull it away from the wall with this hand. And then my left hand is actually creating a nice, oh, that looks nice. Few more obstacles. I just used a short blade. Anything longer might do a little too much damage. With this one here, what I like to do is I'll just cut like what I believe is approximately the square. First, I press the plastic up against and I see ballpark where it is. Then I pull it away. I know where the corner is, so let's cut a ballpark square. This doesn't have to be perfect because we tape everything up afterwards. But just our luck, it is perfect. We have all the way up against the ceiling, stapled and looking good. We have the walls. We're working our way out to the outside, but we do have this piece. So what we have to do is pull the vapor barrier through. The stuff that is wrapped around the receptacle gets pulled out through this vapor barrier. So that way the receptacle is covered, and then we tape this part to the outside of the wall. That way everything is covered, but we're gonna cut this nice and clean. It's important to keep your distance from the receptacles. If you catch the wire, you'll have to call an electrician with a tail in between your legs and explain how foolish you just were.
You're fired!
We cut our rectangle, approximately the size of the box, slightly bigger, and we pull all of this vapor barrier through. See this little flappy here? We want to get rid of that. We want it nice and tight. Always remember that. This is something to note. It's a little bit of insulation on the stud. Sometimes insulation can pile up so much on a stud that when you're installing your drywall, you notice a lump. So make sure that this stuff is pressed in so that no insulation is going to cause any problems for you in the future when installing drywall. For this wall here, I'm going to stop the vapor barrier around this point, and then that way I'll use a new strip for that other wall. We're going to want to trim off what we have. We have a lot extra, I'll just cut right about here. When we're going around a bend, it's always important to push a little extra vapor barrier. I'm not saying leave bends of vapor barrier in there, but you need to get right up in there, okay? If you're not up in that corner, like you need to, like I almost got a little bit inside that little crack there, just because I do not want this stuff to be too short. If the vapor barrier is not pushed nice and tight up in there, what'll happen is your piece will actually be pulled and there's nowhere for your drywall to go because the plastic will be preventing it from pushing it into the corner. Because you won't have a corner, you'll have a round edge. And a round edge, if you go up to there, then you're gonna have like a 1/4 inch space that you can't do anything about. So always make sure that it's pushed right up in there, which I did. You can almost see that it's folding a little bit on this side, which is a good indication that there's some space for it to go. And we continue on the top. It's always the same strategy. So whenever I'm installing vapor barrier, I'm also always thinking of point loads. So point loads basically means that if something is pushing in a certain direction, is there something to stop it or to support it, okay? From this case, I always think of the point load of pulling on this paper. Do I have something that's holding the load if I pull it straight down? And the answer is yes. If these are all stapled on the top, then what I could do is pull from the very middle, and it has an even point load from left to right, and then you can get a pretty decent tight paper. So this is pulled pretty tight right now. I'm using the 2x4 in the center to give me good leverage. You could see that it's like folding on the side. It's bubbling up on the side. So what we do is we pull it nice and tight from this way. So I'm pulling the vapor barrier in a diagonal direction. That way I can get rid of these little folds here. So you notice I was going to pull down, but this side was done. This side was not stapled. So we need to address that and make sure that that's nice and tight. I'm starting to notice this obstacle here. So what we do is we grab the knife. This is a plate that just covers every other switch. You know when you have a switch, there's a plate cover on a switch. Well, this is a plate cover as well for a massive switch. So this has a little lip under there, and what I would do is try to pull this a hair away, and I'm going to cut about right about here. See that? And then the goal is that this should be able to flip under and tuck under the plate cover. So pull it a little bit further away. Don't hit your panel because you'll scratch it. No one likes to see that. If all works to plan, just push that in. Just tucks right behind, like that. Might need a little motivation, but it'll go there. And we just tape around it. Not bad. Almost looks professional. And yours will look the same. Just follow the same steps as me. Make sure you have a good attitude and prepare to make a mistake or two. When you're trying something new, you learn best by making small mistakes and promising yourself that you're not going to make another. I'm out of staples. So, pull the vapor barrier away, then I push in. Since I have this side already stapled on, I can work my way in a diagonal direction. This is a great point load to work off of. Push forward, staple right in the center. From there you can go diagonal. And I'm pushing in this direction with my hand. Now when we're trimming off the end, shorter blade, put it on the 2x4 if you can, and give yourself a little excess. I use a slightly longer knife just to pierce under towards the bottom. And then I just cut the bottom by sliding my knife under the 2x4, but above the small vapor barrier that we put on the floor. We use this small vapor barrier under the bottom plate of this 2x4 because 2x4s easily absorb moisture from cement. So this is why we even went an extra step beyond by using pressure treated for our bottom plates. So getting back to the job, we always make sure that we slide our utility knife in between here and here, okay, when we're cutting. There we go. And we're trying not to cut this vapor barrier on the ground. That's the main point that I was trying to communicate to you. Not quite sure if that was accomplished. We're now moving on to our final wall. So how do we get started again? That's right, always on the ceiling. So like I said, always extend a few extra feet. So I'll extend more than what I need to do the wall. Set it right here on a 2x4. I unfold and I put a little excess material at the top. Why? Because I didn't cut such a straight line down here. This is horribly crooked down here, so I always add like an extra foot. We have the top stapled. Work your way down from the center. So I was pushing down, didn't have very much luck because I have all this weird stuff up here. So the best strategy is, now that we have the top all stapled in, you, instead of pulling the vapor barrier down with your hand because it's creating a weird shape, there's a staple, there's a nail here that's kind of creating a protrusion. So what I would think is, you pull down, you pull away here, and you know how I normally push down with my hand? Push with your stapler. That looks pretty straight. Keep going, keep going. Now we're just creating a point load straight down so that we can go right and left. But we'll continue to go down. We don't have anything getting in our way just yet. So this is a nice strategy. Pull. If you pull too tight, you'll rip the stuff right off the wall. Use your brain. Don't pull too hard. Now, we're getting some obstacles. Cut a T. Oops. See, I pulled a little too hard. Rip this right off the wall. So now that I have this stapled down, I can actually pull sideways now and get a better, tighter seal on everything. If you cut your hole and the hole doesn't match up correctly, make sure it does. Cut around so that you can actually pull it tight. Even there, like I feel like that might not be perfect yet. There you go. See when I staple this around? It's nice and almost like pretty tight. I could tape around this to make it perfect. Remember, if things aren't perfect, make it perfect. It's just a matter of getting more material. See this? Looks like trash, right? We'll tape it all up. You won't even see it. You'll have no idea. It'll look like a big taped up mess. But it'll be perfect. That's all that needs to matter. This is a clean out. Whenever you see this square, it's so that people can take this off and put a snake in and out, just in case you have a clogged drain. You could always access it through this little hole. One very critical thing to realize, if you choose to use your utility knife on a 2x4, make sure you watch where your blade goes. See this here? That's my hot and cold water pipes for probably my bathroom inside right next to us. So if we cut through that, we got a leak everywhere. Be careful, don't do that. Take your time, cut slowly. It's easy to do a job correctly. It's also easy to screw things up beyond belief.
You are fired.
As a rule of thumb, I typically cut my sides and my bottoms at the same time. This makes the receptacle completely waterproof, or not completely waterproof, but more water resistant. And what we do is apply our tape around, but before we do that, we take a utility knife and we cut off all this excess stuff. And we try to create a nice straight lines that are easy to tape, because you don't want to tape all this flappy stuff. You'll be using your entire roll of tape instead of one or two pieces on each side. I pull this out, I push the wall in, then I cut. When you have this much around, you could legit just cut right through everything. Nice long blade. Just like that. Tape that up, good to go. Always make sure you pick up your trash along the way. The rule of thumb is always clean in and clean out. What that means is, before you leave, the place has to be clean. When you show up, you're expected to show up to a clean job site. If you show up and the job site's a bloody mess, then you're cleaning first before you even get started. So clean in, clean out. You show up, the house is clean. When you leave the job site, it needs to be clean. Let's get our tape and tape this up. So how I do it is I hold it down with my fingers, with my pinky fingers, and then I take my tape and I apply it right over top. So this tape isn't like masking tape. You can't just cut it and hold it with your lips because it'll take your face right off. If you accidentally make a cut that you're not supposed to in the plastic, It's not a big deal. Just take a piece of tape, cover it up. So there's our first one done. So again, I use my fingers to push it down. Then I use these fingers to place my tape. So I remember this little piece over here that was all mangled up. I thought my circle was closer to here, but I was off by 6 inches. No big deal. So this is installing vapor barrier. Pretty simple. Basically all we're doing is we start on one side, go all the way around. We always start at the tops, then we work our way out, down from the center of the wall and then out. Then once we've cut all of our penetrations, we pull all of our plastic out and we seal them with the proper tuck tape. Vapor barrier has a lot of huge benefits. Not only does it keep the vapor out, which is like it's in the name, right? A vapor barrier. It's supposed to keep the vapor from penetrating inside the house, the fabrics of the house. That being said, there's a lot of extra benefits to vapor barriers. It keeps the draft out of your house. When no moisture or drafts come in, then the walls remain intact. If the moisture penetrates through, then what can happen is you can get rusting through the walls. It might penetrate to your screws and you'll see rusting come through. It keeps the pests out of your house. So when there's little bugs that are trying to crawl through, it keeps those guys out. When it prevents the moisture from passing through, it also helps reduce mold and other bacteria-related health issues. So that being said, a vapor barrier is super important. Make sure you put it on your outside walls of your basement and upstairs and your attic, the ceiling on your upper floor. That way everything remains perfectly dry, and even if you have a little leak, at least it won't damage the inside of your home. You could just patch it from the outside and hopefully you catch it soon enough that you don't have any issues. So I really enjoyed making this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment below and, ask us, talk to us. We want to hear from you. We want feedback. I hope you learned a lot. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And just remember, no mistakes. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Great, you're still here. Make sure you check out these other videos. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.